I, Dr. K.S. Rajmohan, the Organizing Secretary Schemcon 22, warmly welcome Professor Abhijit Majumder, Associate Professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, to deliver his invited talk. To brief about his background, Abhijit Majumder did his BE from then REC and now NIT Durgapur in 2002. He completed his Masters in Cryogenic Engineering from IIT Kharagpur in 2004. He has completed his PhD in 2010 from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. He has done several postdoctoral fellowships. Between 2010 and 2012, he did in STEM NCBS Bangalore. He did another postdoc between 2012 to 2013 at Harvard Medical School, Boston. He did his another postdoctoral from DBT IA Fellow in STEM NCBS between 2013 to 2004. He has got his DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance Early Career Fellowship, TR35 India Young Investigators Award and People Travel Grant Award and runners-up at Allen Gent Award. Coming to his research, he is working in the area of mechanosensing and mechanosignals to determine the stem cell fat. And also he is working in the areas of combinatorial effect of biochemical and mechanical gradient on cell migration and differentiation, a microfluidic approach. So we are fortunate and we thank him for sparing his time amidst his busy schedule. So we thanks for accepting our invitation, sir. On behalf of Organizing Committee and Department of Chemical Engineering, I once again welcome you. Over to you, sir.
It would be great if I could be there, present in person and could interact with you. But, nevertheless, let us take the chance, whatever little time we have. So in morning, I was listening to Professor Jadav's talk, and, he was also talking about how chemical engineers are so versatile that they are doing so many different, type of work, and they're contributing in so many different fields. And one of such field is, where my lab work on. So I am a chemical engineer, but still my lab is working on, this area which is called mechanobiology. So I thought today, because it is, Schemcon, it is, the mostly the students. So what I thought is I will discuss with you that what is this new emerging area and how, as an engineer and specifically a chemical engineer, one may contribute. So when we think of our body, human body, I see it as a, a playground for the, for the chemical engineers specifically, because the whole body, if you look at any part, this has something to do with whatever we study, in our 4 years of, of our BTech or BE course, right? Our heart is a pump, our lung and kidney, they are the mass transfer device. Our, the whole intestine system, they are a unit where the lot of the reactions are going on. Each cell in, in our body, they are having, a lot of reactions and the reaction kinetics involved. And obviously the whole body, we are having heat transfer, that is, we are sweating. Mass transfer, we are having absorption, evaporation, and the whole, the lot of the different materials that is involved, the materials and the mechanics. So that is where we will be focusing today. Not just the whole body, even if we look at individual cell, that also look as, appear to me as a chemical factory where we have a control room, lot of transport is happening and lot of energy consumption and the production is happening. So there is no surprise that a lot of chemical engineers are there in the different bio-related fields, like pharmaceutical, bioprocess engineering. I think Professor Yadav talked about, a lot about various aspects of this. We are also making different biomedical devices and diagnostic tools. We have seen such, such contribution, particularly during COVID. We are contributing in the environment and sustainability. We are helping in the policy making, and obviously in the biology research, where there are various different fields that we chemical engineers are, all the time contributing to. If we think of that, the role model, if you ask me that who are my role models, when I talk about chemical engineers working in the various areas of biology, these two people come to my mind. One from India, Professor K. Vijayaraghavan, you may know him. He just, very recently, he was principal scientific advisor to PM. Just a few months ago, kind of he completed his tenure. And here we have Professor Robert Langer, or we call him Professor Bob Langer, and he is known as founder of tissue engineering. Both of them are chemical engineers by training, but they have developed their journey as a biologist because they are, where their passion lies. And if I talk about Professor Langer, he is the co-founder of Moderna. And you all may know the name of Moderna because that came up with this RNA vaccine for COVID. He is known as Edison of medicine. And just to kind of, as a trivia is that Professor Langer, because he has started so many companies, that he is also in the top 200 richest person in the world. So it is not true that, academia does not have money. One can make money, following their passion. So if I quote from, Professor Langer, he said that I was a chemical engineer on one hand, then he was exposed to medicine. And then he said that I had the best of these two worlds, and no one had that kind of expertise that point of time. And that's why he had this edge over his peers at that time, and that helped him to grow. So with this kind of background, that how the chemical engineers can really contribute and are contributing in the areas of biology in general, we will now, specifically focus on the topic that is what, I'm going to talk about, or that is where my lab works on, and that is mechanobiology. So what is mechanobiology? And as the name suggests, the mechano, that is, it is a force-based, mechanics-based, right? Fluid mechanics, solid mechanics. So every, this is the world of mechanics comes with Isaac Newton. And this mechanics and with biology, and that is called mechanobiology. And because mechanics is there, that's why engineers have so many different things to contribute in this area. So what are the examples of mechanobiology? So let me give you one very common example, and that is, if you are listening to my talk right now, that is happening thanks to mechanobiology, because the sound wave is entering your ear, and if this is the cell inside your ear, they have this small hair-like structure. When the sound wave goes, this hair-like structure bends, and when they bends, they are attached with this small spring. And so like when they bend, the spring gets stretched, and when the spring gets stretched, everything is mechanics, right? Wave, bending, spring is getting stretched, and when the spring gets stretched, there are these small doors that is known as ion channel, and that door gets opened because the spring is pulling it. So the door gets opened, and as soon as the door gets opened, the calcium ion can get in, and then that starts a process of electrical signaling that goes to the brain, and that is how we listen to. So the hearing process starts with mechanics. and you can easily understand that we can differentiate between different pitch, different decibel, different volume level, because of these structures, that they bend differently depending on what kind of sound they are getting. So not just the hearing, there are many other examples in our body where the mechanobiology is playing important roles, and such as the various common examples are touch, that you can tell the difference between touch by, say, uh, two different people, because you can understand that force applied and the texture of that hand. When we breathe, our lungs get expanded, and the mechanics is playing a role. And obviously that during the blood circulation, the heart needs to pump, and when the heart pumps, the blood flows through the artery and then comes back through the veins, and they have different amount of or different level of elasticity, and as a result the blood vessels, artery and veins, they expand differently, and that's why the blood circulates so well. And if there is any problem, which happens particularly in the case of the cardiovascular kind of system, the cardiovascular diseases, that the elasticity of our blood vessel changes, we develop blood pressure. So that tells us that the mechanics is so important for our well-being. In fact, to live, if we can't breathe, we can't live. So all these examples are mostly that the force from outside applying on our body, or to be very specific, on the cells. Now, if I look at the other angle of the story has two sides. The other side of the story, the cells are also applying force on their surroundings. So as you can see here, one example that is from a paper from 1980s, what they had here, they have a polymer which is like a very, very soft, almost a liquid like polymer, but on top of that they have a thin crust. The way we get the crust over milk, that way it has a thin solid crust. And when you put the cells on top, cells actually adhere to that, and then the cell pull inward. And as a result, you can see this formation of this wrinkle, as you can see if we pull on your skin. And that was the first demonstration that cells also apply force on their surroundings. Later on, we had other kind of developed other technique. For example, as here we can see that we have some very micro scale pillars, that is known as micropillar array, like your toothbrush bristle, and the cells adhere to that and pull. And from that pull, you can see these toothbrush bristles are bending, and from the amount of bending, you can actually calculate how much force these cells are applying on. You remember your cantilever beam bending that you may have done in your engineering mechanics. So what the cells are doing, they are applying force. Why do they do that? What is the biological significance? So they basically apply the force on their surroundings the way we apply the force on our surroundings, for the same reason, that is to estimate the stiffness, how stiff the surrounding is. If the surrounding is stiff, then when they apply force, things will not deform much. But if the surrounding is soft, then with the same amount of applied force, the surrounding will deform a lot. And why this measurement of the surrounding stiffness is important? To understand that, we have to look at the stiffness of the different tissues in our body. And it is very interesting to see that our brain is the kind of the softest tissue, which is in the range of 50 to 100 Pascal, to the ranging, we have the cartilage, which has 12,000 to 20,000 kilopascal, and finally to bone, which is in the gigapascal range. So our body has all different ranges of stiffness, different tissues, and nature has made, after these billions years of evolution, that different stiffness of different tissues because it is required. So the tissue specific stiffness is required to maintain the function of the tissues. If my muscle become as stiff as my cartilage, I will not be able to function. If my bone becomes soft, obviously I will not be able to walk. So different tissues, endothelial tissues, they make our blood vessels. If their elasticity or mechanical properties changes, then as I said, we will develop blood pressure issues. So to understand how these different tissue rigidity is important, chemical engineers and the material scientists, they have developed different range of different materials ranging from few hundred of pascals to some gigapascal range to understand the effect of stiffness on cellular behavior. And they also create this kind of micro and nanoscale pillars, as I have already explained, to understand again this mechanosignaling process. In the interest of time, I will skip a lot of this. Okay, so I think this slide I need to talk about. So when I talk about the mechanical and the geometric cues, there are various different possible mechanical signals, not just the stiffness, but we can have the structure that I have just seen here, some kind of, we can have the fluid flow, the shear stress, and then the strain, vibration. These all are the mechanical cues that involve or that interfere with the behavior of the cells. So I had some more stories to kind of share with you, but because of, I think, this kind of timing change, and I'm sorry for that, I have another meeting at 4, so I have to kind of stop here. So I'll skip a lot of the interesting, funny stuff here, but just to kind of give you a nice conclusion at the end is that cells can sense the mechanical physical environment through their mechanosignals, and these such mechanical signals are very important for their functions. When we get diseases, for example, cancer, the cancer tumors are generally stiffer. That is also a diagnostic purpose, but also for the cancer to develop and to grow, they need to become stiffer. So they have a lot of pathological implications, this kind of mechanical signals in our body. For example, say, to give you another example, in case of asthma, in case of various lung diseases, lung tissue becomes stiffer, and as a result, lung cannot expand properly. So these signals include these various different parameters, as we said, as I already mentioned, and they are all important for our well-being. And as an engineer, and particularly the chemical engineer, we can contribute various ways in this emerging area, such as we can create new materials by varying their rigidity, porosity, absorption, adsorption property. We can create new structure mimicking the body in the in the microfabrication and the nanofabrication, or sometimes creating the multi-scale hierarchical pattern. We can develop sensing system, sensor, so that we can do the experiment and get the feedback and have a feedback loop to change the system. And as I have already mentioned, that when we have the flow, the shear coming from from the fluid flow can influence the cell behavior. So again, as a chemical engineer, we can design various microfluidic devices, say mimicking our lung, that we call lung on chip, or mimicking the heart, that we call heart on chip, liver on chip, brain on chip, Altogether, we call it organ on chip, and such kind of devices and the materials designs are important to understand the basic functioning or the biology of our body, as well as to test drug, to know which drug will work better, uh, to for a patient, specific. Say if I have cancer, because every cancer is different, uh, the drug that work for another patient may not work for me. So if a device can be made where my own body cell can be used, and then the drug can be tested on that, then the doctor can predict that, okay, this drug will work for this patient, and that will increase the patient survival. So with this, I stop here. This is my group. Whatever I have learned in the biology, I am, as I have told you, I am a trained chemical engineer, but whatever I have learned in biology, thanks to Professor Jyotsna Dhawan, with whom I did my postdoctoral research. I wanted to tell this story, so that's why these people are here, and these are my funding agencies. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm again sorry to kind of rush you through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Abhijit, sir, and thank you for your wonderful lecture. And we would like to have a lot more sessions like this from you, where we can learn about the microfluidics of veins and other things, and from wave functions of physics to mechanobiologists also. Hope to see you, and followed by this Sakil sir's lecture is there. And thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Okay.